Imagine like, what you would expect like from people in that environment. How would you expect people to behave? And then imagine what you would expect from a dog. We would look over and see Fred like trotting around the battlefield like he was at the Westminster Kennel Club, and like all those things are in the back of my head, like don't approach the dogs. I mean, you get the in-country brief, it's like one of the first things they say is don't approach the stray dogs. I get closer to him, I get like, 10, 12 feet from him, and I get a good look at him, and I almost turned around right there because he was covered in bugs. I could see his ribs, his fur was matted, and he was clearly not a puppy. He was like 2 years old. And I was like, oh man, like never mind, like leave him alone. Like he's too far gone. And I started to kind of turn on my heel, and then I heard this thump, 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 thump. And I'm like, what's that? And I turned around, it was his tail. He's wagging his tail. And this dog had nothing to wag his tail about. He had no reason to trust me or hope that I offered him anything other than a boot to the face. In that moment, I wasn't in Sangin. I wasn't like one mortar round away from, being vaporized. Like I was just a guy with a dog.
So getting him out of there, what happened? Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Resilient Show. I am here in Texas in our home studio. You may see us out of Texas for a little bit in the home studio because we are actually, if you don't know, the studio is at the location of the Mighty Oaks Global Headquarters, and we're currently going to be on the construction and building the Mighty Oaks Global Headquarters around this building. And so for like the next 4 months, we're going to be building this. Mighty Oaks Foundation, if you don't know, is a just amazing organization that I founded in 2011. We have an incredible staff of about 40 full-time people and about 70 or 80 part-time people. And we've served over 500,000 active duty warriors, veterans, first responders, and their families. And this is, like I said, ground zero for our global headquarters. And we're so excited to be building that out here. But the bad side is we're going to have to turn the power off for about 4 months while they do that. So you're going to see us at some remote locations, Smith & Wesson's studio, Vortex's studio. We're going to be at Pastor Joby Martin's church, 1122, doing some episodes there. Ironclad Production Studios in Virginia Beach, and just some different places. I think we're going to go to Jack Hibbs's church and do a couple of episodes up there in California. So stay tuned for some remote locations, but we will continue to do, as always, only in-person guests. And speaking of in-person guests, we have Craig Grossi here with us today, the author of the incredible book, Craig and Fred, and a former United States Marine, a fellow United States Marine brother,
yeah, buddy,
and who served with Marine Reconnaissance in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, and where you met Fred.
That's right.
And so, So I'm pumped to have you on, man. Your book is incredible. I read it quite some time ago.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of our staff has read. You met Jeremy out there, has read the book, and it's just an incredible story. And the books,
thank you.
If you guys don't know, this book did really well. It's sold well over between 100, 200,000 copies.
Yeah. So, it's done really well. I'm really proud of this story, and it's, it's like just looking back at all the places it's taken me and the places it took Fred when he was here physically, it's just such a testament to the power of sharing, and it was to think that for a long time after Afghanistan, I was intent on not talking about it. Mm-hmm. I was intent on, on comparing my deployments and my experiences to everybody else's, and what I'd been through wasn't that bad. And, I needed to just shut up and keep my head down and keep working. And I was so wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great quote by Theodore Roosevelt. It says, comparison is the thief of joy.
Totally.
And, we compare ourselves when other people compare themselves to us, or we compare ourselves to others. It just robs joy.
Absolutely.
And it robs the rich stories like the story of you and Fred to share with other people. And to inspire people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I thought, we'll get into all this, but the only combat veteran in my family was my Uncle John, and he was in the Battle of the Bulge, like whole unit wiped out. The only story that we really ever heard was he was presumed dead, missing in action, presumed dead. And he put on a German trench coat and was like hiding, like moving around behind enemy lines, like until he found an American patrol and like linked up with them. But it was like 2 weeks and they didn't know where he was. But like, that was as much as I knew about Uncle John, and his experience. Like he didn't talk about it. And so many of our previous generations of veterans, whether it's World War II or Korea or Vietnam, like they just didn't feel like they could talk about it.
Right.
And so I thought, all right, well, if those guys could live their lives and come home and not talk about it, then like I can do that too. I can be the strong, silent type, you know, and it's like, it just wasn't working. It wasn't working. I was so unhappy, so lost, drinking too much, like putting my frustrations and my rage in all the wrong places, hanging out with the wrong people, and just one bad night away from really derailing my life. And Fred was my buoy. Fred was my guide, you know, to a different path. And like you said, like 200,000 copies of a book, and, you know, thousands of readers, and, you know, people's lives changed by this amazing story that I get to share.
I think it's really probably appropriate we talk about this a little bit, the thing of storytelling, because in the veteran community, there's a lot of like positivity, and there's a lot of hate by people that share their story. Right. It was a real negative and toxicity. And in this kind of idea that when someone shares their story, they're doing it for self-gain, and it's a bad thing. But historically, like war cultures have sat around campfires and told stories of generations before them. And I would not have joined the Marine Corps, particularly I would not have become a reconnaissance Marine if it wasn't for those who came before me and told their stories. Because when I was a teenager, I read 3rd Force Recon, 1st Force Recon by Dr. Bill Peters. Like I read all these books. I read Men with the Men with Green Faces, and about the SEALs in Vietnam. Yeah. And like those stories is what inspired me, the next generation, to want to become a warrior. And so if those stories aren't told, exactly, and it, you know, it doesn't inspire the next generation. And there's so much value and lessons that we learn that we have a responsibility to pay forward. And, exactly. And so this idea that if a veteran writes a book, it's a bad thing. It's a lot of it's professional jealousy, and negativity that's just not consistent with history. No, it's not. We live on the military lives on the history of those before us. Yeah, exactly. And I think if there is one thing that's consistent is, unfortunately, is that people who shine, people who step up and are vulnerable, you will catch some of that, of course. But it's part of it. That's a part of it, and it's unfortunate, but you know, it's worth it. It's worth the positive impact that you can have by stepping up and sharing your story. It outweighs any of the negativity, and that was the big transition for me, was understanding that there's way more strength. It takes way more strength to be vulnerable than it does to do the opposite, to be the strong, silent type. 100%. And I had it flipped for so long. And I see now that, you know, the trauma, the PTSD, like losing my friends in combat and like spending their last moments with them, you know, like running away from those memories and trying to out drink them or out PT them or outwork them was in fact a disservice to those men who, you know, who's I served alongside, who saved my life, you know, and this is where my story, you know, I'm so proud of it in that everybody's story is different, but the Fred factor, Fred really brought and continues to bring a lot of people to this subject that ordinarily wouldn't pick up a book about veterans or Afghanistan or war. You know, like they saw Fred on the cover and they were like, oh, a dog, you know, probably the first thing people do is make sure he lives, you know, like, oh, he makes it out, you know, like spoiler alert, he's on the cover. He obviously makes it out, but like, you know, I think just the dog element of it and the Fred factor brought a lot of people to, you know, to read a book about, you know, our service members, you know, and the things that they've gone through and the things that they deal with coming home. And I'm really proud to kind of bridge those gaps. Well, as I told you when you came in, every guest on the Resilient Show gets a custom. Yeah, I love this. So if you're listening and not watching, if you go into video, YouTube, you can see we have a custom background here for Craig, and on there we're in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, and we have a picture of Fred. Fred at his happiest. He's obviously wet, a little dirty, and just. That was probably taken on the Maine coast somewhere. And I love seeing him in the ocean because, you know, he was like the only dog from his bloodline that ever saw like the Atlantic. Afghan dogs never seen the ocean. So yeah, that's definitely worth checking out if you're listening. Definitely check out the video too. And it's a life-size version of Fred too. He's looking handsome there. Yeah. Well, you mentioned, you know, he's no longer with us. Yeah. So, you know, he passed. Yeah. And
In 2023, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy story. We're skipping ahead a little bit, but he landed at JFK. That was the airport I got him to on 11/22/2010. He passed away on 11/22/2023. Like it just happened that way, which is wild.
So he was here for 13 years.
Yeah, he was here for 13 years. He was probably 2 years old when we came across him. So he was
joking earlier about he was probably born on January 1st. Every Afghan,
right?
When were you born? Yeah. All their birthdays are January 1st. It's made up birth certificate.
Yeah. Got to start somewhere. Yeah.
Before we get too far into Fred, I mean, in order to get there to have this encounter with Fred, you became a United States Marine.
That's right.
What led you to become a Marine?
Yeah, I think like a lot of us, I was a bad student. I didn't dislike school. I wasn't work averse.
You say a lot of us. You mean a lot of us in the Marines.
In the Marines, yeah. I think that's a common trait. I think we all share is just being. I won't even say bad students, just being frustrated by school. Like I had a lot to offer. And especially where I grew up in the Beltway. So I'm a Beltway brat. My dad served 4 years in the Air Force after high school, and he served overseas during Vietnam. And then he worked for the NTSB. So, the National Transportation Safety Board, fascinating career and really modeled to me a life of service, and so did all of my neighbors. Like growing up, I remember seeing those little stickers that I don't think they have them anymore now, but like every military member, you had like a base sticker, on your windshield. I remember seeing those on all the cars in my neighborhood and not knowing what they were until I joined the Marines, and I was like, oh, the red ones are enlisted and the blue ones are officer, it clicked. But so I grew up very much in the Beltway, just being like around people who were serving something bigger than themselves, and being frustrated in school, I started to think about other things, because after high school, like the idea of doing another 4 years of school was like the last thing I wanted to do. And I was kind of flirting with the military and really drawn to the Marines. Just because I've been an athlete my whole life. I'm a big hockey player, and the whole concept of just having the highest physical standards. And I think one of the things I really felt was I felt like I slipped through the cracks as a kid. Like I felt like I had a lot to offer, but I'm at this huge high school that like my senior class was like almost 1,000 kids, and so if you didn't learn a certain way, you were going to get left behind. I had some great teachers that tried, but like I was C's and D's, mostly D's, and so got through, and all my friends like seemed like they had their entire lives mapped out by like junior year high school. Like they knew what they were going to go to college for, where they wanted to go. And I was thinking just other stuff. What else is out there? And the Marines, just kind of really got their hooks in me with just the standards, and just being surrounded by people who wouldn't let me fall through the cracks, who wouldn't let me give anything other than 100% of myself. And I was really craving that. And I joined after 9/11. I graduated high school in 2001 and was still on the fence. My dad begged me to like try community college. So I tried, and it was predictable, and then we were attacked, and, I had to, I remember driving out to the Pentagon and seeing the smoke, on the night of 9/11, and just driving over 395 and looking at this building that I spent my whole life driving by, where my neighbors, worked, and seeing it on fire and being like, I should already be in the Marines. What am I doing? And I couldn't join fast enough after that. Yeah.
Your second enlistment before you moved into counterintel.
Yeah. My first 4 years, I learned a lot. But my two big takeaways were, I liked being a Marine. I did not like the job that I ended up with. So I ended up working in corrections as an MP in the corrections side of things. And, it was just felt like kind of a dead end thing. Nobody really seemed to like what they do. And then just the whole military justice, the system seemed to just be like giving guys and girls just such a bad ride. Like, lower enlisted people just being taken for a ride and being made an example out of for stuff that, that would mess their lives up, and take away their benefits and stuff for forever. That when it really, there were people doing way worse things with a little bit more rank on their collar that and they wouldn't suffer those consequences. So it was hard to see that, but it was a good experience. I went to Gitmo and did like 8 months down in Gitmo, and that was pretty eye opening. Just that whole operation down there in 2004 and 2005. So it was pretty early on, and it was pretty intense down there.
A lot of bad guys.
A lot of bad guys, and a lot of guys that were clearly like did not belong there. You knew when you were dealing with one that was a true fighter.
Yeah.
I mean, you just when you put your hands on them, like the way they would tense up and like the way they would just take any opportunity to try to take a bite out of you, you had to be really sharp. And then you'd go get some Afghan guy who was just like crying all day because he misses his wife and kids, and like in his farm. And he was just like, got rolled up, because of some grievance with, and they just, but I will say from my experience that we did seem to be doing a pretty good job back then of trying to like sift through those guys that didn't belong there. And, it was a mess, and a really, really tough job to try to figure out who belonged and who didn't. Yeah. But after my first 4 years, I figured out what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do, which is just as important. And was, looking for a way to lat move. And I found out about counterintelligence and human intelligence through a prior service recruiter, because I ended up kind of having some broken time. And when he just started to describe what little bit he could tell me about the job, I was hooked, because it seemed like it really combined like who I was as a person. Like, if making friends and connecting with people was a job or was a class in high school, like that would have been my 1A, like I was that kid that was friends with everybody, and it seemed like that social kind of curiosity and side of it was really what they were looking for. They were looking for Marines who could think outside the box, who could, connect with people, from in different situations in a variety of backgrounds. And I liked just when I went in for my first kind of board, the questions they asked, the way they pushed me and the way they messed with me, and it was love at first sight. And it was a long road, but the training was intense, but it was the best job I've ever had, for sure.
Well, a lot of people don't know this about the Marine Corps, but the Marine Corps does have the best or most respected like counterintel and human intelligence operators. And that's why all the, you look at units like, CAG, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, Task Force Orange, they have Marine CI guys assigned there.
Absolutely.
Because the Marine Corps brings some of the best.
No, the Army, the FBI, like so many different agencies all came to Dam Neck to see how they were running our schoolhouse, and made copies of what the Marines were doing like that. And it's I feel like a little exposed, because you don't hear a lot of O211s. You don't hear a lot of CI human guys like doing what I do, and so, I write about the process and, and how I became, came into the field a little bit in the book, but I don't give too much away, because I do take a lot of pride in the kind of secrecy side of it. So
with that, not a lot of people talk about it. I've never interviewed someone on the show that has done that MOS before. What can you tell the audience about it? With the limitations of what you can. Yeah, I mean, it really takes a creative mind, somebody that can function in your traditional, platoon level tactics, but just as comfortable working with on a patrol with a bunch of grunts and looking at a dangerous situation with from a different perspective, not from the grunt's perspective, but be able to communicate that perspective to them to help mitigate loss of life or find a follow-on target or something, just bring something unique to the battlefield. And then also, be able to I don't say coerce, but, kind of tactfully guide senior leadership in the right direction and give them options and kind of, with using your kind of analytical mind and your, everything you're learning from being on the ground and the realities of it and taking that into the more of the strategic side of things and being able to communicate with those egos that often have, that stuff on their collar that kind of influences their choices
and also then take all of that and then also be an interrogator and be able to sit down for hours and hours on end with somebody, and try to peel their brain apart a little bit, and figure out their intentions, where they were, what they were doing, and try to catch little snags in their stories and little inconsistencies or not, and just make that call. Sometimes you have a couple days, couple weeks, couple months to do something like that. Sometimes you have minutes to make a choice about somebody on the battlefield, whether or not you need to, recommend them to be detained and processed or let them go, and so it's a incredible field, and I'm really, really glad that I got the opportunity to serve as an 0211. And if you're curious about it, Google it and see what you find, and ask questions. And the biggest lesson that a lot of us took away, I think, especially in the early weeks of training, is how to ask a proper question. So many people don't know how to ask a proper question, and just use interrogatives, and don't fill the air with all these assumptions and things, just who, what, when, where, why. That sounds so simple, but if you listen to people talk, when we ask questions, a lot of times we then try to explain the question, just ask the question and let people talk and see where things go, and that's what's great about podcasts. We can just bump our gums and see where it goes.
Well, with that, you guys oftentimes would be assigned to special operations units, and then a lot of the interacting with local nationals and doing those interrogations or just interviewing local nationals, it would really help develop and build target packages. And that's what you did with First Recon.
Yeah, I mean, it really just came down to for me in that role, I was the only 0211 attached to First Recon Charlie Company. So it was just me. Nobody was looking over my shoulder. Nobody was going to tell me in the morning, hey, go do this, go talk to that person, go talk to that local, it was just me, trying to bring something to the battlefield that Recon couldn't provide for themselves, which is saying a lot. I mean, Recon is a self-licking ice cream cone. You guys know what you're doing, right? So I really needed to prove that I had something to offer, and it sounds so sexy to talk about interrogations and all this stuff, we want to talk about, but really what saved most lives was just smiling and laughing with a local, just walking up to a guy, with my interpreter, of course, and just being like, how's your day going, man? And let him talk.
Yeah.
And then inevitably, what I want to know, we'll get there, because he's worried about the same stuff we are. He's worried about his kids playing soccer and stepping on an IED. He's worried about the Taliban leaving a night letter on his door. This one guy I'm thinking about was a bread maker, and he stopped making bread because every time he made bread to sell by the road, they would just come and take it. The Taliban would just come and take it, and he's like, I can't make money. I'm stuck. We're stuck here, and so, just learning about what people's priorities are, what people are up against every day, it saved a lot of lives. That guy literally, we were stepping off in the middle of the night, one of our early patrols in Sangin, into the green zone. It's laced with IEDs, and he comes out, he's throwing pebbles at the patrol, and he's saying, Craig D, trying to get my attention, because I just connected with him earlier that afternoon. And I go over and I'm like, what? And he just says, mines. He's whispering to me in the dark. And I'm like, where? And he's just everywhere. And he took my hand, and I would love it. I just see it so clearly in my mind, somebody looking through one of the Recon guys looking through their NVGs and seeing me holding hands with another man walking through a field in the middle of the night. But that guy, no doubt, saved lives that night. Yeah. But it all started with just a smile and a couple of questions. It wasn't like this. It wasn't like I grabbed him by the beard and yoked him up into the corner. It was just being his buddy, just being a friend. Yeah.
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 Yeah. What's going on with you? Right.
What's going on with you? What's it like being living here, and all of a sudden in the middle of the night, a bunch of Marines are your neighbor, that's wild.
We talk about, Sangin, Helmand Province, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
2010, 2011 was, to my knowledge of not me being in Afghanistan, to my knowledge, working in Mighty Oaks and seeing it back in, that was probably the most horrific place in Afghanistan that I'm aware of. And the most horrific deployments were 2010, 2011, in Afghanistan. IEDs. I mean, a 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines took they took like 25 KIAs in like just a couple of months, 75 amputees. Brutal. In 1st Recon Battalion, we have some friends that, I think we talked about Rosie, and I don't know if Frank Simmons was out there when you guys were at the same time.
I think so,
some incredible dudes that did some incredible things there, and you were right there amongst them. And
thank God. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them.
What was daily life like living in that environment? I mean,
it was just a constant threat of death, to the point where you just got used to it. Like, that was just, we're getting shot at right now. Like, what do you want? Like, what MRE did you get? Like it was just, and like one of my biggest motivations for writing Craig and Fred was to write about those guys from Charlie Company. Yeah. Because it makes me emotional just talking about them. Like, the lack of resources like that they had, like, and the amount of enemy that we were up against is crazy. Like, we should have lost a lot of Marines, and we didn't, because of the way they handled themselves. And it started with Top Schmidt, Mark Schmidt, and it went all the way down to every level of those guys. And I love talking about Mark, because he will refuse any credit, but a lot of it goes to him. But just the like, I'd be hearing, if we had like an unarmed drone going overhead, and they're trying to get a count of the Taliban around us, and the guy's like, I lost count. I lost count at like 200. And I'm hearing this and I'm like, oh shit. And then
how many Marines are
like, we had like probably 50, 60 Marines, but we're in a compound that we just commandeered, and used sandbags to, put some roof. Like, we had like 3 rooftop positions. 2 of them were had a good view of the green zone. And then you had some murder holes. So the best we could hope for was maybe like 8 to 10 guys, like, actually shooting back, like
able to fight,
in like a position to really return fire, which is nuts. And then you hear them on the radio, and like, they're so calm, and so like, they're talking about distance and direction and angles and this and this and this, and like taking fire, but really focused on where it's coming from and how to put rounds in the right place to put that fire down, and then focus on the next one. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And the best I could do in those moments was just be on the wall, and if I could just like tell me where to point my gun, and like, I'll try, but like, you guys, they had it so handled. And that really motivated me when the sun would go down and we would hit the streets and go on these all night patrols. That really made me, want to do my job, do my part to understand the enemy, and, how they were operating, where they were coming from, how they were moving so effectively against us. And, and then try to get that information, back to the guys on the rooftops, and also to the decision makers back at Leatherneck, and, try to shape the battlefield for everybody else, because it was such uncharted territory, Sangin at that time. Yeah.
There's just not a lot of stories out there. I mean, there is, but like, that make it mainstream public of some of the stuff that the Recon Marines did in Afghanistan and Iraq, and amazing guys like Schmidt and Rosie and all those guys, like Simmons. Is there any story that you could share that just highlights the courage and tenacity of the battlefield? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, so the first morning, one of my good friends, Joe Murdy, he was on the roof, and they were taking fire, and they had it worked out where they were like it. I feel like one of the tactics I saw them doing was letting the Taliban really get comfortable and really shoot and feel like they had them on the ropes, and then they would expose themselves a little bit more, and then they could actually, shoot them instead of shooting at them. Like they could actually, kill them. And Murdy had that kind of figured out, and I think him and his partner drew the attention of a sniper. And as Murdy came up to engage, a sniper round hit his M4 and fragged into his helmet, and he just dropped. And the round went into his helmet and popped out the side and dropped him, but we thought he was dead. And he's up on the roof, and I go running over, and I'm with the corpsman, and Jim, and we're like, what's going on? And the bullets are cracking overhead, and his partner gets in and gets his helmet off, and is expecting to just see, bits of skull and brain in there, but it's all there was some hair. Just gave him a little haircut, and Joe kind of comes to, and we get him down, and he survived, obviously, but it was our next mission in Sangin. Joe was right back on the roof.
Yeah.
like that's insane.
Yeah.
Insane and nobody would have blamed him if he would have been like, I'll be
shot in the head.
I'll be headquarters now. I'll be a headquarters guy now, or whatever. Like I'll sit this next one out. Like Joe was right back on patrol, right back on the roof, doing recon stuff. Like unreal. And that's just one story. And I think some other ones would be, on patrol, the poise, because we would keep track of where we were taking fire from. And then when the sun would go down, we would just patrol in that direction and try to just leave even just leaving footprints was just it was like a mind game, we're in your kitchen, we're here, and just the little decisions that guys would make on patrols, to take the hard route. Even when it meant, if we were going 2 miles east, to a cluster of villages where we saw a lot of activity and we're taking a lot of fire from, we would go 3 miles south first, and then just do a big long walk, as indirect as you possibly can, through cornfields, through canals, through mud fields, just not touching a single road or goat path, to avoid those IEDs and those booby traps and those ambush points. And just the dedication and the professionalism that it takes to do that and plan those routes and stick to them when you're exhausted and you see this well-worn path that would be so nice to just walk and have firm ground underfoot, and not worry about slipping and losing a boot and you have all this stuff on you, but to really, stick to that, that's not the sexiest stuff. That's not but that's what really gets the job done. And that's what gets everybody out of there, and that's ultimately what we should be, the most proud of, is walking everybody out of that place. Yeah. And it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, something changed the environment, Fred.
Yeah.
And, I one of the things we were just talking about Aziz, and it was like, hey, meet Craig. Craig brought Fred back. I brought Aziz back. You met Aziz.
Yeah.
But one of the things Aziz and I would always talk, Aziz would always be like, stay away from those dogs.
Yeah.
The feral, wild Afghan dogs are they will eat you. Mm-hmm. And so they're everywhere in Afghanistan.
Yeah, they are.
And so this dog comes up who's a wild dog, not a domesticated dog.
No,
and
wild man. Yeah, he wasn't wasn't a fob dog. And in my speaking events and stuff, that's my favorite part. Is I spend the first part of it, the first intro is really building the picture of Sangin, like we just did, the chaos, the violence, the death, it was all around us, and then I record scratch, imagine what you would expect from people in that environment, what you'd how would you expect people to behave, and then imagine what you would expect from a dog in that environment, and then just throw it right out the window. Because Fred, I remember we would see him during gunfights, we would look over and see Fred trotting around the battlefield he was at the Westminster Kennel Club, and and we would just laugh. Do you see this little, and he was little, we would see that little white dog. What's his deal? He looks like a cartoon character. And it would just make you smile just looking at him. And then after about that first that first 10 days, the Taliban got the message, and we killed a lot of them, and they really pulled back because they had to, and they gave us some breathing room. And I'll never forget, I the first time I really interacted with Fred, I got my little tough book out, and I was getting ready to crank out some reports, and I open my laptop up, and I see this tail periscope across the top of it, just in the distance, and I'm like, oh, there's that dog again, and I like put the laptop down, and I'm just watching him, and it's the middle of the day. He's the only dog out and about in the middle of the day because it's so hot. Usually the dogs are sleeping, and they come out at night, but he's out all by himself. And it looked like he was like shopping. Like he was just like running some errands, just like trotting around. And the next thing I know, I'm approaching him, and I have a little piece of jerky in my hand, and I'm like, let's just see, let's see what happens. And all those things are in the back of my head. Like, don't approach the dogs. I mean, you get the in-country brief. It's like one of the first things they say is don't approach the stray dogs. They're all diseased and feral and mean. And I'm like, yeah. But this one looks cool. And I've always wanted a dog. Growing up, I didn't have one. I had to walk all my neighbors' dogs to get my fix. But I get closer to him. I get 10, 12 feet from him, and I get a good look at him. And I almost turned around right there because he was covered in bugs. I could see his ribs. His fur was matted, and he was clearly not a puppy. He was like 2 years old. And I was like, oh man, like, never mind, like, leave him alone. Like he's too far gone. And I started to kind of turn on my heel, and then I heard this thump, 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 thump. And I'm like, what's that? And I turned around, it was his tail. He's wagging his tail. And this dog had nothing to wag his tail about. He had no reason to trust me or hope that I offered him anything other than a boot to the face. I mean, like, that was what life had thrown him his whole life up into that point. But something in a little spark of hope in him made him wag his tail. And that brought me a little bit closer. And I knelt down, and I held the jerky out to him, and he stood up, and like, just as gently as he could, he took the jerky with his front teeth. He didn't like snatch it, and he chewed it. And like, I was just waiting for him to like pull out a napkin and wipe his mouth. Like, that was the only thing that could have surprised me more. And I give him some rubs, and I'm kind of talking with him, and I'm like, and that's just what dogs do, man. Like, in that moment, I wasn't in Sangin. I wasn't like one mortar round away from, being vaporized. Like, I was just a guy with a dog. Yeah. And it was probably only like 30, 40 seconds. And I stood up and started walking back to my stuff, and I feel a little poke at my heel, and looked down, and it was Fred. And well, he wasn't Fred then. He was about to be Fred. And one of my friends, an EOD guy, rest in peace, Matt Marsh, was watching, and he said, looks like you made a friend. But what I heard him say was, hey, he looks like a Fred. And I was like, okay, yeah, Fred, we'll call him Fred. So he kind of got his name by accident. Yeah. Yeah. That was the beginning.
I mean, like you said, there's rules and stuff like that, and briefings. So you're breaking protocol, right?
Yeah, just right off the bat. Yeah, just even approaching him at all was a break of protocol. But if there's some people that, if there's a unit to do it with, it's Recon. Recon, they like to push. They like to push the gray area.
It does a rule. We're kind of trying to break it.
Yeah, exactly.
Find a way to break it. Yeah. How does he come into the fold? Right now, you're in a kind of makeshift fob. Right?
Yeah.
So how does he come into be part of your life?
Just all on his own. Like I brought him over. I gave him some water. Everybody kind of comes over and is checking him out, and then it's like back to work. I got reports to write. But the corpsman was an amazing amazing guy, the corpsman that served with Recon. Jim comes over and starts pulling bugs off of him and gets all these weird like flying ticks off of him, out of his fur and out of his hide. And Fred goes over, finds my sleeping bag and makes a little nest out of it and passes out. And I was
so he let the doc,
yeah, he just sat there and let Jim pull all these bugs just yank him out of his hide. That was another shock. He was like, how is he just letting you do that? And I start typing my reports up, and then we get ready to punch out that night. As soon as it gets dark, we start gearing up. And I had my kit kind of staged over by the door, and Fred found my stuff and was like curled up around it. And I put my stuff on, and he starts following us on patrol. And I was like, oh, he'll probably follow us for a little while, but we're going to be out all night. Like, there's no way he's going to stick with us all night. And sure enough, we come up to that first canal. We called it the mini Helmand. It was just like a really big, deep canal. And we start sinking into the water and getting across. And Fred jumps in and swims across the canal and gets up the other side. And he spent all night with us, and he never made a sound. It's like he saw somebody's patch, swift, silent, deadly, and was like, "Oh, swift, I can do that. I can be swift."
Recon dog,
yeah. Because I mean, there's that like, night times when all the dogs are barking and howling and like making all this noise, and like I think it's like dog in the dog like Geneva Convention, like if a dog barks, another dog barks.
Yeah.
But Fred programmed himself to like not return the bark. You know, and so we would be moving through these villages and through these canals, and these packs of wild dogs are howling and screaming. And Fred would just be like, you know, I'm with these guys. They're quiet, you know, and slick. And like, we're just, you know, we're moving through, you know. And so it was wild. And that's, I think, you know, where a lot of the Recon guys really fell in love with him, was seeing like how he was clearly so with us, you know, and so just instantly a part of our team. And that it started pretty quickly with guys, you know, getting in my ear, like, we got to get him out of here. We got to get him out of here. And I was like, I love the idea, but it's a huge risk. Right. Yeah. I mean,
he kept going on patrols with you guys.
He kept going until he exposed, the illume out there can get crazy. I mean, the moon is so bright, you know,
right.
and we were moving through a cornfield that had just been cut. And so we were super exposed, and Fred all of a sudden one night just starts screaming, just barking his head off at something near the edge of the field. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, guys put their sights on him. Like, it was not the best time for him to be highlighting us. And, so somebody said he's barking at something, like there's something moving over there. And it was two IED emplacers. And what they were doing was they were waiting for us to pass by them. And then they were going to, connect. The IEDs were all in place, but they had disconnected the pressure plates. And so they were waiting, hoping that we would come back that way. And they were going to connect to the pressure plates. And all they had on them was some wire crimpers and a couple shovels.
Right.
But Fred sniffed them out and was barking at them, and they're hiding under a blanket. And so we go over and we yoke them up, and I scared them. But, you know, it was like, they didn't have enough on them to really, you know, justify like changing the trajectory of the whole patrol. Like, I just kind of did my head guy thing and then sent them on their separate ways. And after that patrol, they were like, never again. Fred's staying here. Like, we don't want to be put in that position where he's putting he's barking and we have to like make that call. You know, we might have to shoot him, you know, or hurt him to get him to shut up. Like, guys didn't want to be put in that position. So, you know, that was his official retirement from combat patrols. And he'd still try. He would try to sneak out, you know, and try to find us. But that was Mark Schmidt would be on Fred duty, and he would keep him in the talk next to the radio. Yeah.
So getting him out of there, what happened?
Getting him.
How'd you guys? Was that a team effort plan or?
Yes. So, but the responsibility fell on me because I wasn't, you know, a part of their command. I was my own, you know, attachment. And I'm like, for better or worse, I developed a reputation as the intel guy. I could make things happen, you know? And Fred obviously was just so connected with me and like followed me around everywhere, slept in my sleeping bag every night, like was very much my dog. And so the guys, you know, were trying to get creative. Like, well, what if we do this? What if we do this? What if we hire a local to drive him somewhere? Or what if we, you know, drug him, you know, or what if we just pretend like he's a working dog? And, you know, all the different theories like started popping up. And And the first challenge was when it was time to exfil, we broke down that compound and pushed like probably 5-6 miles into the desert to a different compound that's where we were going to get picked up. And, I remember leaving that night and not seeing Fred, and he didn't follow us into the desert. And I was like, oh, I guess, that's it. He made his call. And we get there and I just pass out. I'm exhausted. And 2 guys are up on the wall, and the sun's coming up, and they start freaking out like, Craig, get up here. And I get on the wall and I look through binoculars, and it's this like homeward bound moment. Fred like trotting, through the morning's, dust and sun, and he sniffed us out over miles and miles of desert and found us at that little compound that we were just waiting in for the helicopters. And I was like, all right. So, okay, that's phase 1. But now the trickiest, scariest part is getting him on this helicopter. What are we going to do? And so, all the guys are like throwing all these theories at me. And I just was like, you know what, Fred, if you follow me to the bird, and if you're not scared off by the rotor wash and the noise, and you actually like move with us, then I'll know for sure this is what I'm supposed to do. Because you think about the ethical dilemma here is like, if I just force him, if I drag him with us and bring him back to Camp Leatherneck, where like I'd already gotten yelled at for my mustache, now I'm going to have like a 40-pound piece of contraband. Like they're going to be all over me. And they would have put him down. So I would have killed him by trying to save him. And I just felt so selfish. And I was like, I really need to know this is what I'm supposed to do. And I really hoped that he would, but I didn't want to be the ugly American, like dragging a dog, my souvenir dog home. I wanted to make sure it was meant to be. And so sure enough, we line up, and the helicopter, the 53s are coming in, and, they kick up a lot of dust, that big rotor.
Yeah.
And, I'm just watching the guy in front of me to make sure I don't lead the element, into the tail rotor or something. Cause it's a major brownout, and I'm just running towards the helicopter, and I'm towards the back, and I feel that poke again at my heel. And I look down, and there's this little face in the dust. He's right there. And he's like, where are you going? Like, I'm coming too. And from behind me, Top Schmidt was ready, and I had a duffel bag in my pocket and stuffed in my cargo pocket, and Top grabbed Fred by the scruff and just picked him up, and was like, all he said was, we're doing this. And we stuffed him in that duffel bag and zipped it closed. And he held one handle, I held the other, and we tried to make it look heavy, because that landing crew is like, they're paying attention, and they know we didn't leave with the dog. So, and that just right away, like, if anybody saw that, could unravel the whole thing. Anybody outside of that unit saw it could unravel the whole thing. Even just a well-meaning like mention, oh, Recon brought a dog out, like it could have unraveled the whole thing. And so we run up the ramp, and I sit down, and it's not sexy. Like we're with these huge rucks on. We're just sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
We're all packed in these old, leaky 53s, God bless them. And Fred is between my legs, and he's squirming a little bit. So I just open the bag, and I stick my hand in there. And as soon as he feels my hand, he kind of relaxes, and he lays down between my legs, which is so sweet, because his whole life, that was his spot, was between my legs. He would always lay there. Sorry. And I'll never forget that helicopter lifting off and looking around the inside of that can of whoop ass that is a 53, and all these like sexy recon boys with their muscles and tattoos and guns and beards, and all I see is teeth, because they're all smiling so big, because like they're all whispering like, Fred's on board, Fred made it out, and I'm like so happy, and then it's like this wave of happiness, and then this even bigger wave of anxiety, because it was like, what now? What did you just do, man? Like, we're gonna land, and like it's on. Like,
what do we do with them?
Yeah, like we have like 2 weeks. We're going right back out. Like, this is, and Camp Leatherneck might as well be like Camp Pendleton. Like there's a Pizza Hut and like air conditioning. Like people are walking around in uniform and like shaving every day. Like this is gonna get hairy, and I don't really know how it's gonna go. And the helicopter extract and everything is such a great part of the story, but the way the rest of Fred's journey to America kind of comes together after that is a real testament to people, and like the good that people can do, when we come together. It's pretty amazing.
So how'd that unfold? You land at Leatherneck with this contraband.
Yeah. I landed at Leatherneck. There's like a whole reception because it was like a big deal that we all were coming out of there. And like the whole, everybody was so proud, and they had like, cold drinks and stuff ready for everybody coming off the helicopter. And like
who did that? I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure because I didn't go because I had a dog in a duffel bag. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. The whole formation like kind of like peels off towards that, and like I can see it from writing the story and telling the story so much. I see it so clearly in my head. It's just me like shuffling like off to the side and running towards the road where two of my buddies were coming in a Hilux.
Right.
And I just rolled into the back of this Hilux and it was like, go, go, go. And they
planned like, it was
I called on my sat phone and I was like, guys, I might have a dog with me and I need you there. Like right as soon as I get off the helicopter. And yeah, it was like another extraction. They drive me back to the other side of base. And on the drive over, I remember looking out the side of the truck, and I saw a little sign that just said DHL, the shipping company. And they literally weren't there when we left. Like that's how fast things were moving at that time. And I dropped Fred off in I had like a little barracks room I shared with some other O211s. I dropped Fred off there with a guy and could keep him entertained and quiet. And I went over to the DHL compound, and the guy's literally plugging in his computer. Like they're setting up their offices and like their operation there. And they have a menu of stuff on the wall of things they can ship, right? Like rugs and things they can't ship, like guns and whatever. And
dogs,
right. Well, the dogs were things they can ship. It was like on the menu was like DHL can ship live animals, right? It wasn't like specific to Afghanistan. I think it was just like DHL in general. Like we ship all these things, and live animals was on there. And I was like, that's interesting. Like hypothetically, if I had a dog, like what would that look like if I was trying to ship him home? And the guy saw right through me. I probably had like Fred fur on my collar, and he was like, he was this amazing guy from Uganda. And the whole staff was from all over the world, the Philippines and the UK and everywhere. And he was like, bring me this dog. I want to meet this dog. So I went and got Fred and brought Fred over, and he connected with the DHL team, and they really went above and beyond. They ended up kind of fostering him because I was going right back out the door. And so they gave me all these forms I needed to get. They gave me like a checklist of paperwork I needed to have filled out. And I started working on that. And then I started preparing to go back out to Sangin. And meanwhile, Fred is just like becomes the DHL like working dog. And he's kind of hiding in plain sight on Camp Leatherneck. And they really just took great care of him. And there's some really great scenes in the book about how they did that and how like just the way he avoided getting detected. And I go back out into Sangin, and I'm there for about a week. And I go on like a 3-day patrol with a smaller element into the green zone, and I end up getting hit with the blast from a 107, and it knocked me out, blew a wall down on top of me, and I couldn't even put my helmet back on. I had such a big contusion on the back of my head, and luckily nobody else was really hurt, and nobody was killed. I mean, it was a 107, and we got headed back to our main base that we had established, and they did a MACE exam. I think it is, right? The concussion thing. They did that on me, and I guess I failed it, and they Med-Evaced me out. And it turned out to be a blessing, for a lot of reasons, because it gave me, once I was worried though, because they were talking about sending me home, because the TBI was that at that level. And I was like, no, like I need to stay. Like I got some things I'm cooking, and they had to go through like all this protocol, and I just tried to get through it as fast as I could. And as soon as they cleared me, I went over to DHL, and while I had been gone, a lot of the paperwork had kind of come in, and I worked with a organization, an American woman who I won't name, but because she's still working in this region with animals and with people. But she helped me get some of the more sensitive stuff like shot cards. Because, you're supposed to be, a dog or any animal is supposed to be vaccinated and then quarantined, but no one's going to vaccinate vaccinate and quarantine a dog I'm not supposed to have.
Right.
You know, so, you know, that was a tricky part to get a hold of that stuff. And so, she helped me kind of get that stuff. And then I just got some of the forms I just straight up forged.
Yeah.
And then there was a British Army vet that kind of stepped up and gave him like a little bit of an exam, you know, to make sure he didn't have like something egregious, you know, like obvious. But she was like, no, he's fine. Like as long as you get him vaccinated, as soon as you get him back to the States, you know, it's fine. If he had something, it would be pretty obvious, you know, by now. And so I felt pretty good about it. And then the last kind of missing piece was a kennel. Like, how do I get him? What do I ship him home in? Like, I can't get him a coach seat, you know, and I can't just go pop off to Petco and pick up a kennel, you know. And if I tried to buy one online, it's going to take weeks to get here. And so I have all the paperwork lined up. Fred is masquerading as like the DHL working dog. Like literally, like anytime an American, like, you know, general or colonel like comes around to like, you know, get the brief on DHL and what they're doing, they're like trotting Fred around on a leash, and he's sniffing all the crates and stuff that they're shipping and receiving. And then people just think that's like his job. Yeah, that's his job. And so it was like, you know, pretty good. And
some Hesco make one out of Hesco, right?
Yeah. Right. So some of the, it was so sweet. Two of the, DHL staff members, there were two of the Filipino guys, made him one out of like chicken wire and pallet wood.
Okay.
And it was so sweet, but when I took it to them and I was like, and they were like, you know, he can't fly in that. It has to be like a FAA certified kennel. And so I'm in the chow hall at Mid-Rats, like racking my brain, like, what am I going to do? And, anybody in the Marines knows about the Lance Corporal Mafia.
Yeah.
And this young Marine I've never met comes over to me and he's like, hey, I know about Fred. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Who's Fred?
Who's Fred?
Yeah. And he's like, dude, like I can help. And I'm like, help me how? What do you know? Like, how do you think you can help me? And he's like, I'm like support staff for the military police working dogs. And like, there's just kennels laying around everywhere over there. And he's like, I hear you need a kennel. He's like, I can get you one. And I was like, all right, man. Like whatever you need, I'll give you. But if you can make that happen, that would be huge. In the middle of the night, like probably 4 a.m., outside of my little dorm room, I hear a clunk and I open the door and he had driven by and dropped this kennel off in the middle of the night. And it was huge. So, you know, like military.
That sums up the Marine Corps, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's tactically acquired. It wasn't stolen, but Fred, that was the missing piece. And as soon as he had that and he had all his paperwork, they put him on a pallet. We threw a bunch of lunch meat in that kennel and he went in there and we shut it and he flew home in a tactically acquired military police dog kennel, which like, is such a great twist. Yeah.
Who receives him on the back end?
Yeah. So the closest airport I could get him to DC, where I'm from, was JFK. And I called my dad and I was, you know, he had been kind of like up to speed on like, you know, but I don't think he really thought it was going to happen. And I called my dad and my sister and I was like, he's on his way. And like, if you guys could, you know, take a little drive to New York and just be waiting at customs, you know, like I'd really appreciate it. My dad was like, oh geez, like my whole life, my dad did not let me have a dog. Like he stonewalled me every time I tried to get a dog. And he always said, it was like this, such a dad thing to say. It was like, oh, if you get a dog, I'm going to have to do everything. I'm going to have to walk it. I'm going to have to take care of it. And he was right. So for 4 months, it was my dad and Fred, you know, in my childhood home, walking my neighborhood, you know, and it was just so neat to get pictures of him. You know, my sister would send me care packages with pictures of Fred sleeping in, you know, next to my dad on the couch, and Fred, you know, at the park that I grew up in. And, you know, like just, it was a pretty amazing thing knowing that even if I didn't make it back, like we got Fred out, you know, and it just felt like such a victory for me and for those Recon guys, you know, because I think even then in 2010 and 2011, we knew, you know, that this war we were going to need all the victories we could get, you know, out of it. And Fred is definitely a victory that has continued to give. Yeah.
So you finally get home, and there's got to be a reuniting moment.
Yeah, that was
had Fred react.
That was great. I've never heard a dog gasp before, but that's when he saw me. He was like, he gasped, and I came walking down the stairs. My dad just surrendered the basement to him. It was just like, this is Fred's lair. I give up because Fred had a hard time figuring out some things, like
being domesticated.
Like he'd never really been inside. So when he figured out, okay, when I want to go outside, I go through the wall. So he would just go over to like the drywall. When he wanted to go outside, he would just go over to the wall and like sink one of his fangs in the drywall and just rip like a section of drywall out.
Just like eat through the wall.
And then, oh no, wait, no, there's these like holes in the wall that open. That's where I want to be. That's where we come and go. So he would go over and then just pop trim off doors, trying to get through the door. And so my dad was like basically following Fred around the house with a stucco knife, like re-drywalling everywhere and filling all the holes. And I come home and I very quickly got out of the Marines. I had already extended to go on that deployment, so I didn't have much time left. I took my terminal leave and grabbed Fred, with one of the really great things about being an O211 is you get your TSSCI clearance, and you have all this intelligence experience. And so I went right into a job with the DIA and
Defense Intelligence
Agency. Yeah. And got an apartment in DC. I was engaged for a little bit after I got home, but ended that relationship. And it was just me and Fred in this little apartment. And all of a sudden I'd gone from finally at 27, 28, really feeling like I had finally found my place personally and professionally in the world and in the Marine Corps. And then poof, it's gone. And I'm in a huge government agency, 8 hours a day, checking spreadsheets, writing emails, sitting in meetings, feeling like I'm like just so lost. And like, no, it doesn't even matter if I show up or not. And that I was not ready for that feeling at all. I thought you come home, you check boxes, you get engaged or whatever, you get a truck, job, place to live, like check. A year later, I checked all the boxes and I'm miserable. And I'm like, what is happening? And the one good, consistent thing in my life was Fred. And I would come home and, take off my suit and tie and put on my sneakers and take Fred for a run. If it was nice and cool, we lived right on, in Southeast DC, and like, so we were just a couple miles from the Capitol and, we'd run the monuments, or walk the monuments every day. And like, that was what kept me alive then. If I didn't have Fred as proof of what I could do, something extraordinary, something crazy, something beautiful, and also just a dog being a dog, like just being a loving, carefree, consistent source of joy. During that time, I would have very quickly become a statistic but he had his work cut out for him. I mean, I wasn't going to talk about any of this stuff. And the biggest problem with that approach was Fred, because he's a very handsome and interesting looking dog. And, he's not like your typical Labradoodle at the dog park. Like he sounds different. He had a heck of a bark and a howl. And he's like,
people are like, what is that?
His little legs. Exactly. And like, that's just like natural dog park kind of conversation is like, what kind of dog is that? Right. And most people are like, oh, it's, it's a Shih Tzu, it's a Labradoodle, it's a this or it's that. And it's this like how you connect with people. But that's a loaded question, for me, because it's like this, I have to say he's from Afghanistan and then it opens up all these questions that I wasn't going to talk about. And so for a long time, I would just make up a breed. I would be like, oh, he's a pocket wolf, or whatever. And people would be like, oh yeah, I've heard of those. and one day somebody asked me, and you talk about what we talked about in the beginning, like asking proper questions. This woman asked me, what kind of dog is Fred? And I'd seen her and her dog before at the park, and she just asked me what kind of dog was Fred, and she didn't guess. She didn't follow it up with any kind of an assumption about, oh, maybe he's part corgi because of his little legs or whatever. She just let that interrogative kind of hang there. And for some reason, I just was like, you know what? He's from Afghanistan. And, he's not just from Afghanistan, he's from Sangin. And this is what it was like for us there and for the Afghani people there. And this is what it was like getting him out. And the next thing I know, I'm launching into the whole story, like 45 minutes to this poor stranger who just asked me like a totally casual question. And I talk about her because we're really, really good friends now. And she's a therapist. And so what I didn't realize I was having therapy there at the dog park. And she's now a member of our board on our brand new nonprofit that we just started. And so I'll never forget walking back to my apartment that first day after telling the story for the first time and looking down at Fred and just crying and just being like, dude, what did you do? You opened it up. Like I felt so good. It was the opposite of how I felt. And from that moment on, anytime somebody asked, what kind of dog is that? I let him have it. Yeah, I'm sure I made a lot of people late for stuff, like
tell a story.
I was sorry. I just got sucked into the story at the dog park, but I let it rip and I never stopped. And here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, how quickly did you become domesticated? Like, I mean, a lot of training in.
Right. I think Fred would probably say he never truly became domesticated. Just enough. Like he never went to the bath. He never had a problem like going to the bathroom or anything. Like he always understood you don't do that inside.
Yeah.
Which is pretty remarkable. But he till the very last day, he always had a wild side about him. I mean, that's one of the reasons we moved to Maine.
Right.
Was like I wanted to be able to. We're very lucky to have a beautiful house on some property, and like I could open the door and like just go on these like I think about like Teddy Roosevelt would do these like walks where he wouldn't go around stuff, right? Like he would like go over hills, through rivers, through like he just would like walk in a straight line. That was like following Fred around. It was just like let him off the leash in Maine and let's see where we end up. See where that nose takes you and. That was just so fun. And of course, every day he would walk me to like the edge of our property and like want to keep going. Like I could have given him 1,000 acres and he would have found the edge of it, Yeah. But I think he was so clearly right there in Sangin for me and for us. For all of us to have a reminder of what is possible when you're grateful, even for just the most simple things. Yeah. And you choose to wag your tail at your problems instead of letting your problems tell you how to behave and how to act. And it doesn't make your problems go away. Mm-hmm. It just makes them a little bit more approachable. And that's where
right?
That's where I started calling it stubborn positivity. That's the only thing I could think to call it, is like being stubborn about being positive, and not like there's so much stuff about positivity that I think can be a little toxic where it's like, everything's fine. Like it could be worse. Like that's a very dismissive kind of way of thinking about it. Like your problems are your problems and your trauma is your trauma. You don't need, like we talked about comparing, like you don't need to compare your suffering. There's no, like suffering is suffering. If something was really hard for you or really traumatic for you, then you need to deal with it. And you don't need to say, well, so-and-so had it worse or it could be this or it could be that. Like it sucks and it's okay. And you can find your way through it instead of trying to avoid it or dismiss it.
Yeah. Just like him wagging its tail in the middle of a Warzone.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, in your darkest moments, that had to be the inspiration, right? Like if he could be happy in a place like Sangin and in my darkest moment.
Exactly. If a dog could find it within himself to wag his tail at me, then what's my excuse? What's any of our excuses? Like there's a reason. Even if it's just the air in your lungs or the blood in your veins, like there's a reason to wag your tail.
Your transition home, you didn't stay at the DIA. You ended up going to school.
Yeah.
Playing hockey again.
Yeah. Right? It took a turn there. I said I'd give the DIA 2 years. I gave it about 2 years to try to like get somewhere in there where I felt happy and like my work was, worth something and it wasn't getting anywhere. And so going back to school was another thing I thought I would never do. I hated school. But I found out about Georgetown University, and almost on a dare I applied because I thought, no way they'll let me in. It's Georgetown, and I was hoping that I wouldn't get in, and then I would be able to just, say, oh, college isn't for me. But for some reason, somebody was snoozing at admissions. They let me in, and come to find out, if you're a veteran looking for education, don't write off Georgetown. Like they have they gave me full credit for everything in my STAR transcript, or that transcript you get for all your training you do. They were giving me credit for MCIs I did in like 2003. They were like, oh, that counts. And they were like, they gave me a whole year of credit. So I only had to do 3 years to get my bachelor's. And like, that was the opposite of so many schools. When I would talk to an admissions counselor or a dean at a school, they would be like, oh, we'll give you a couple credits here, a couple credits there. But they want your GI Bill money for as long as they can get it. Georgetown is like, no, like you deserve credit for that. So they would max out your credits. And a lot of veterans I talked to, that was their experience too at Georgetown. It was amazing. And then, I find out they have a hockey team, and again, like just on a dare, almost on a dare to myself, it was like, I found out when the tryouts were, and
we got 18, 19-year-old college, brand new young college kids coming in.
Oh man, I had long hair, long beard. I show up, my gear, some of my gear is older than them. I think that's not even an exaggeration.
Like, whose dad is this?
Yeah. Whose dad? Exactly. Whose dad is this? And I make the team, and I had so much of my life, when I look back on it, is me making assumptions and being so wrong.
Yeah.
Because I had so many assumptions about these kids, these young kids. They're this, they're that, they're entitled, they don't know how to work. They're like, and I was so wrong on so many levels about these guys. And I connected with them like I did with the guys I served with.
Yeah.
Like, late night practices, long road trips for games. And like learning about these young men that were working so hard, a lot of them, they came from privileged backgrounds, but like they weren't resting on that. Like they wanted to take their life to the next level, and they really wanted to do some big things in life. And like, it's college hockey. Like it wasn't NCAA Division I. Like these guys are doing this level of hockey because they love hockey and they love to challenge themselves and compete. And hockey is just such a special sport, and I loved those 3 years. We won our league championship my first year, and we played the Naval Academy, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'd always get a couple of penalties in that game.
Were you steamrolling some of those kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Part of being
merciless.
An older guy, yeah.
Oh, I had no mercy on those kids. And they were like, why are you so like mad at us? And I'm like, I don't even have time to explain, but somebody's got to put you in your place. Yeah. But no hate on the Naval Academy, of course. Just, I'm sorry if I offended anybody, but it's you guys, you never needed a little dose of a E5 coming at you on skates.
Full speed, no brakes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Richie who's, he runs the
and he's been on the
Resilient Studios company for us now, came from Daily Caller, and he's been a guest on the show, and you guys played hockey together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Richie is all gas, no brakes, especially on the ice. Yeah. That guy, unfortunately he's closer to my age. So he had already, I actually played with Richie's brother, Bo.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but that's how I got to know Richie was Richie was coming to the games and stuff. And I think word spread within the Georgetown hockey alumni community of this like veteran that was blowing people up. I mean, I wasn't the fastest guy out there, but I had like 15, 20 pounds on a lot of those guys. And so I used it. Yeah. Yeah. But Richie's an amazing guy. And I'm glad he's with you. He's awesome.
Yeah. He's awesome. We started off with became friends through Daily Caller and me being a guest with a guest on him interviewing me, and now he helped me lead this company, and he's awesome. We love him. Kind of wrapping up with Fred.
Yeah.
So you were part of his life for 14 years?
About 13 years. Yeah. I mean, I guess if you count Afghanistan, it's probably closer to 14.
Yeah.
And we had my first book, Craig and Fred. The way it kind of came together was just incredible. It was it had become a dream of mine, and when I left the DIA and went back to school, one of my first classes I took was a writing class. And, it was the first time I'd really sat down and written like in an academic environment or at all, aside from like writing these reports, as an intelligence collector, which are so like regimented and like you can't be creative with them. They have to be like,
yes,
you have to be able to, just get the facts and not put any flowery language in it. And all of a sudden now I'm writing a paper every week and like really allowing like my mind to flex and use words and like really be free. Yeah. And it felt so good. And I have an academic schedule now, so I have more free time. And so I start taking Fred on these like, little camping trips out in the Shenandoah and stuff on the weekends. And I was filling legal pads like in my tent at night, like just writing this story out. And it felt so good. And then I start typing, and the more I typing, it was just like stuffed, just thousands of words just flying out of me. And it felt so good. And then I started to dream about a book, but I don't have a big platform. I didn't have like a storied military career. I'm like I'm a nobody, so it's hard to get a book deal. And luckily my childhood best friend was a newly minted literary agent, and like just started with a really great literary agency called Janklow and Nesbitt. And he's kind of like, encouraging me, like, this is a book proposal. This is what it looks like, sending me like successful book proposals. So I'm like kind of, okay, working on a proposal and working on some really shiny, like copy, sample chapters to show publishers, and I have everything kind of, all the foundation, like kind of ready. And so now we just needed to attract the attention of a publisher. And my girlfriend, wife now, comes in the picture, and she really starts to just turn up the gas because she's a musician. She's a truly creative, just a gifted person in so many levels. And she's introducing me at parties, like as a writer, and it was like so embarrassing, but I needed that. I needed her to like, I needed her shot in the arm of just like validation and encouragement. And she starts to really take a lot of like little videos of me telling the story and putting them on our Instagram page, which at the time had like 1,000 followers, maybe not even that much. And I'm sending like emails out to publications, like news shows, online media. And I'm like getting rejections, tons of rejections, or just like no replies at all. And I finally get one. I hear back from the Dodo, which at the time the Dodo's huge now. They do all the uplifting animal stories, but they were just starting out. And they wrote back and they're like, what a story. This is amazing. Like, can you give us an interview? So I got on the phone with one of their journalists, gave her the whole story. She wrote up a great article. And we used a bunch of my pictures from social media. And then they did a video using a bunch of the stuff, using the voiceover from the videos that Nora took of me, my girlfriend, now wife. And that video went crazy viral, like 100 million views. And I got an email, Chad got an email from HarperCollins and was like he mentions in the video and in this article that he's working on a book. Like, where's he at with that?
Who is a great publisher, by the way.
Great publisher. Yeah.
Mission Without Borders, Saving Aziz. They've been publisher for me for several books. And I work with them in Tyndale.
They're awesome. Great they're really, really great people. And they had us come in for a meeting, and I'll never forget going into the HarperCollins building in Manhattan. And it's this beautiful office building. And right when you get off the elevator, there's an original copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah. It's like intimidating, but inspiring at the same, amazing. And we bring Fred into the meeting, and they had like the whole,
you brought Fred.
Yeah. Fred comes into the building, and like the whole meeting was like centered around Fred. They had treats for him, and they just from the jump, they treated this story with such respect. And as a brand new author, unproven author, they gave me a ton of time and creativity to really, like, they weren't looking over my shoulder the whole time. Like, it was just an amazing process. And it's made me really just fall in love with writing. And I'm so fortunate to have written a couple of books and working on another one. And like, Fred saved me in so many ways, but connecting me with what I truly think I'm here to do, write stories and share stories. And, is one of the biggest ways he saved me.
Yeah. Well, I think, just the book, you're a brilliant storyteller.
Oh, thanks.
You communicate it. It's an incredible story, and it brings so much hope and inspiration. I've already asked you this, and I just really would love to see, this go to screenplay.
Me too.
And be a movie. I mean, it's such an incredible story.
Yeah, that's been a dream for a long time. And I've written a screenplay. I wrote it all last winter. Like that's what Maine is. You get the snow and the cold nights, and you just hunker down. And I wrote a screenplay last year for it, and I'm really proud of it. And it's it's out there. It's I'm hoping that we get some traction, but it would be an amazing movie. And it would be my hope that the movie would do what the books have done, like bring people to the theater that wouldn't go see, a movie just about the military, and like it's about Fred but Fred is a vessel for so many of the things that veterans face, but the things that all of us face.
Yeah.
And like that's what stubborn positivity is all about. It's not for just veterans. It's for all of us, and it's not a way to avoid your problems. It's a way to experience them and to experience life.
Well, if anybody hadn't read the book yet, we're going to have a link in the show notes below. So you
great.
click the link and go get a copy of the book.
Yeah.
What are all the titles right now?
Yeah. So it's Craig and Fred, and then there's a regular version, and then there's a young reader version, which is
8 years old.
8 and up. And it's really great. And then Second Chances is my second book. And that's about Fred and I volunteering at Maine State Prison, at Shawshank Prison, with it's a maximum security prison in Maine, and there's some really incredible characters in there, real life people. The warden, Randy Liberty, I could write a whole book just about Randy.
Yeah,
his life story will blow you away in just the most beautiful, profound ways. A lot of the men that are serving time or served times, a lot of them are out now, served our country and developed addictions that were basically issued to them.
Right.
After injuries and surgeries, and and then were forced out of the military and came back to their little towns in Maine during the height of the opioid crisis, and really, just struggled. And but I go in there with Fred again. We're going back to the theme of me making assumptions and being so wrong. Like, having served 4 years in prisons, I had a really jaded, kind of cynical view of what I was going to get when I went in there for the first time with Fred, and I was so wrong. Because these guys, because of the programs that Randy, the warden at the time, he's now the state commissioner, because of the programs that Randy had started, these guys you give them just a little bit of an incentive to work towards something positive, and they take it and run with it in amazing ways. I mean, like gardening programs, dog training programs, woodworking, and I go in there, and just because the prison book club read Craig and Fred. Yeah. And I walked out of there completely changed, and called Randy as soon as I got home and was like, I want to come back. Like, what can I do? Like, I want to volunteer here. And I had no idea it was going to turn into a second book, but I'm really, really proud of that book. And I share a little bit more about my struggles and things that I thought I had dealt with. I really got my drinking under control, and I thought that was going to, put my PTSD and a lot of my anger and stuff behind me, but I was wrong. And, I get into that, and a lot of my journey with therapy and like kind of working through that stuff. And I'm just so proud of the stories that I get to share of the men that I got to know in that prison, and the work that they're doing on themselves. And it's really inspiring. And again, it was just Fred, just following Fred, leading me to these amazing people and places.
Well, on top of that, you started a nonprofit puppy rescue mission.
Oh no, puppy rescue mission is what helped. Is we advocate for them a lot.
Okay,
this woman. She's been on our podcast. I can't remember the episode, but her name's Charlotte, and she's still in Afghanistan. She's an American.
They're the ones helping get some of the dogs.
Yeah, she organized last year. She organized the biggest animal lift in history. It was 800.
I heard about it. Yeah.
And she's still there. She didn't leave. She's amazing.
But you did start a nonprofit.
We started a nonprofit. We literally last month just got the paperwork filed. We're starting the Stubbornly Positive Project. Okay. And we want to do, so I wanted the writing program I started in the prison, really showed me the power of writing. And I want to, bring that to veterans and to other people too, that, that are dealing with trauma. And I want to get people to Maine and spend a couple days in Maine and just let the words fly. And we're going to have authors kind of be on staff and other artists, and volunteer their time, and therapists come and just kind of be there, you know, but it'll be really, really just about spending time outside and reflecting, and we'll give people some encouragement, maybe some writing prompts to kind of get them going. If people, you know, like one of the things I say is, you know, you don't have to write a book to be a writer. Like all of us are storytellers. It is the most human thing. I mean, so many people will be like, oh, I'm not a good storyteller. Oh, I don't have anything to say. And then you ask them a couple questions, you get them going, and it's like, man, come on. Like, why do we do that to ourselves? We rob ourselves so much of our own accomplishments, our own experiences in life. And I really want to try to bring people to that, you know, in a natural, constructive, healing way.
Well, it goes back to what we said at the beginning, right? That one of the biggest obstacles to storytelling is comparison.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just, I'm a pretty, you know, spiritual guy. I'm a really strong, my faith's very important to me as a Christian.
Beautiful.
And I believe that, you know, God created us for mission and purpose, but we have an enemy, a spiritual enemy, the devil, that tries to keep us from doing that by telling us lies about you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, no one cares, like your story's not as big as his. And those things are just obstacles to keep us from reaching the people that we reach with our stories, just like you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes me think about like one of my favorite Stephen King books is The Shining, you know, but it's The Shining, it's shine. Mm-hmm. Like it's okay to shine. But like that, I just watched the movie Dr. Sleep, which is like the follow up to The Shining, and it's like, that's basically like it's spooky and kind of like otherworldly and sci-fi, but like it's really about individuality and shining, and then these forces of evil trying to put that down and like take that away,
dim that light,
dim that light, and like that's exactly, you know, same beautiful thing with faith, you know, like that's what it is. It's being robbed of that humanity and that spark that God gave us, that we've all got inside of us.
And it's not only robbed of you, it's robbed of everyone you're going to touch.
Yeah.
Everyone you're going to touch or reach is getting robbed by it.
That's true. Yeah. That's beautiful, man.
What else you got going? Let's see. I think that's your main things you got going. Right?
Yeah. That's
you're speaking.
Oh yeah. Speaking events.
There was something else I wanted to hit.
Yeah.
You're doing some speaking.
But we have an online store too. If you like my shirt, we put Fred's face on a lot of stuff, and we have calendars. We do doing Fred calendars for like 10 years now. And one of my big things on social media is a picture of Fred with a little Fred quote, a little motivational, inspirational Fred quote that that we like to write up. So we do a Fred calendar, and we've got my wife is super creative, and she's always coming up with new shirts and hats and stuff on, you know, to have people can have something physical of Fred to kind of keep with them, keep them motivated and stubbornly positive. Yeah. So that's Fred. And our social media is Fred the Afghan. Yeah.
Fred the Afghan. And then the podcast.
Yeah. The Stubbornly Positive podcast. FredTheAfghan.com, Fred the Afghan on Instagram and Facebook, and the Stubbornly Positive project is in the works. You know, we're just waiting on those official, you know, stamps from the IRS and
we'll
stuff.
Get all that stuff in the show notes below. So
Thank you.
You guys can just click links.
Yeah.
So man, it's so awesome to have you on.
Oh man, it's awesome to be here.
About you and Fred, and you know, we have amazing sponsors that support this show: Smith & Wesson Firearms, Vortex Optics. We have Gators Eyewear.
Cool.
We have Bio Pro supplements. I know you like to stay in shape.
Yeah,
so we'll
yeah.
get you some Bio Pro.
Cool.
And you know, Bio Accelerator and Silent SLNT. It just came on with us. I've been a big user of their products. They make Faraday bags.
Oh, right.
And so all these companies are big supporters of the show, make it possible for people to come on. And as well as Mighty Oaks Foundation, we'll get you a swag bag from Mighty Oaks. But
Great.
We're going to get you a gun from Smith & Wesson, some Vortex Optics, some Gators Eyewear.
Huge.
Some supplements from BioPro. And,
Thank you.
And get you all set up. You're going to pick the gun.
Perfect.
By the way.
Oh,
I don't know if you could use one in Maine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What's the rules up there? They're pretty chill. They're pretty chill.
Yeah,
okay. I know that northeast area is
kinda, not in Maine.
Okay.
They're
That's good to hear.
We just passed, we don't have to get into this, but we just passed one thing that's like, it gives families, it's a good thing. Gives families more power to go to the cops and be like, you know, so-and-so has a gun and they're not well.
Okay.
Basically it's a reaction to the Lewiston shooting, because the family was trying to use the right channels to to use law enforcement and the army to like say to that, this guy's not okay. And he's got all these guns, but nope, the cops didn't do what they were supposed to do. So this thing we just passed now will allow the family to go like right to the source and like actually get the help they need to like get those guns taken away while that person gets help, you know, so we don't have another Lewiston. Yeah. So, but in terms of like, you know, assault rifles and stuff like that, like it's wide open up there. Yeah.
Right on. Well, we'll get you hooked up, man.
Yeah.
But man, it's awesome to have you on again. We'll have everything in the show notes below. But guys, if you're not already a member of our Patreon, join our Patreon. As soon as you break here, we get Craig to do a little Patreon clip for you guys to see something
for sure
off the show, behind the scenes, share some more wisdom and advice. So join our Patreon. It's one of the best ways you can support the show because that membership of $5 a month or whatever level you go up to, it helps us fund this show. So definitely join in. And also this episode, like it, give us a comment, let Craig know what you think about it, and share it. Share it as far and wide as you can. So till next week, God bless and stay resilient. Hey, what's up, Resilient family? I am so grateful for each of you who tune in every week to hear our episodes. We have such incredible guests and topics that I am passionate about, our team's passionate about, and we could not do it without you. So we're thankful for you. We love you. We appreciate you locking arms with us to be more informed, to become a more resilient community. And I want to invite you to become a tighter part of that community by joining us on Patreon. If you go to our show notes below, you can click the link and get dialed into our Patreon and get extra content weekly. You could join for $15 a month and get behind the scenes footage, get closer access to me. I have monthly Zooms that I'll be doing with some members of the community. And so we'd love to get more involved. Again, go below in the show notes and click the link and join today.